Alright, so I have my mic set up now on Odyssey. It's going. Alright, so I have, and it's working, so let me check YouTube. It's not, and it's working. It sounds good. Let me get the stream for Rumble going. I guess I forgot to put the stream key and everything on there. Now, I would have done this earlier just to let you guys know, but what happened was this Naroki 5 actually wanted to call me up on Skype to be on his show, so I just finished up there. And before he sent that message, I was planning on doing this, and things didn't work out the way it was planned to work out. So here I am. Sorry about that. Sorry it took so long. Okay, I'm supposed to be streaming on DLive now, so, or not DLive, but Rumble. Let me see if that's working. Okay, so see if that's working. Yeah, we got it up and going. And this is actually supposed to be a late night show, so it's okay that I'm doing it this late. I decided earlier that I am going to start doing my live with Roger Hanson's late night, and I am going to do it on Mondays, I guess. Now, I was on Naroki 5's stream, but this wasn't his regular day. He does his usually on Sundays, so it was unexpected. Now, I am also using X Pro now, which I am testing out and getting set up to do. If anybody wants to come in and join me in the conversation, they can come to Roger Hanson on X and join in my I keep forgetting the name of this in my freaking whatever they call it. It's the new see, this is gonna piss me off, but anyhow, the new freaking groups or whatever they call it. I had this problem last time. Now this time is different. I'm actually recording it, and I will have it available. Okay, so now let me see if I can hear it. Recording it. Okay, so yeah, here we go. It's actually working. We got it set up, and I'm actually hearing, or I did hear it for a second, so I'm going through and getting it all set up and sounding the way it needs to sound. Let me double check, make sure everything's fine. Okay, yeah, so I did hear my voice in there, so it's all good. At least I heard my voice. Now, I do have some stuff that I am going to be discussing, and before I do that, though, I want to point out that I'm going to do Live with Roger Hanson a little bit different than what I did before. On this one, I'm going to go through different varieties of topics and stuff, and it's not going to be about politics, it's not going to be about paranormal and stuff like that, which you see on in here on a lot of my other stuff. It's going to be kind of a mix of everything. Right now, with the climate the way it is concerning medical misinformation, I will not be discussing anything concerning medicine whatsoever. So I will be putting that out there. We won't have that. There, I just did a really great interview with a guy by the name of B, which I have on Rumble, Odyssey, and uh, Rumble and Odyssey. But when I had it on YouTube, it got blocked. I got a warning from it. So that's the second warning I've gotten from one of my channels, and it's just not going to happen again. You know, I know everybody thinks that frickin' you should walk away from stuff like that, but the truth of the matter is I spent a lot of time working on these channels. This is my blood, sweat, and tears, basically, in putting these things together, these channels together. It has nothing to do with my opinions or anything of that nature. It has to do with something that I've worked years on, and I don't want to lose them. And that's just the way it is with me. You know, I love my channels. I love my channels, and I'm just not going to throw it away because I'm stubborn, and that's just the way it is for me. With that being said, though, we can talk about anything else and get into it if you guys want to. So let me go and get my stuff together. So, and I will be back here to do the show. I'm going to hit record anyhow on my OBS just to make sure. This is the first time that I'm using OBS, or not OBS, but X for. This is the first time for recording, so I want to make sure that I have got that taken care of, or I've got a backup for it. Basically, I'm pretty excited about this. I think it's going to be good if this actually works out with it's called Spaces. Yeah, gosh, I can't believe that I keep messing that up. So, but anyhow, I am using Spaces on X, and I hopefully this comes out to sounding good. So with that being said, let me let me go get me some coffee. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette real quick, and I will be right back and go from there. Okay, I am back and I am ready to start my stream. By the looks of it, nobody is on, but that's fine. I'm doing this just for the sake of getting. I got 2 people on Rumble and I have 1 person on Twitch, which I need to check. Got 2 people. Okay, so we do have audio on Twitch. I am also on X, and X is recording. Now I have to hit record on my OBS, and I will be set up and ready to go. I'll repeat it to everybody. I am on X. If you guys want to come in and have a conversation with me, feel free to come in. I've got it open to everyone, so come on in. Now, with that all being said, I'm going to do my countdown and start recording on the OBS too. And here we go. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Live with Roger Hanson. Tonight I am wanting to start my episodes out on the night that I have decided to do my shows on. I said the other night that there's no way I was going to do late night streams on a Sunday night. And I finally decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing these on Monday nights. And I said it before when I wasn't recording on OBS that I am going to do this a little bit different than last year when I was doing it. This time I am going to just basically have a live stream where I talk about various topics. They could be political, they could be about political history, it could be about just entertainment in general. I also could be talking about paranormal or UFOs, whatever happens. So I'm basically going to do it in that format. And with that being said, I came up with a couple of things that I thought would be pretty interesting to talk about. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about tech too. And one thing that really stuck out with me this year whenever I was doing my interviews with gamers, and yeah, I'll be talking about gamers too, by the way. But when I was talking to gamers and people who are doing tech, which I actually do have a show, it's called Tech Talk with Tan Hytran and Mark Edworthy, and we brought up the topic of Microsoft and Ubisoft and their deal with the EU about doing their cloud gaming, and that was to help convince regulators in the United Kingdom to approve Xbox company. They had $1 billion acquisition for Activision Blizzard, and I thought that was kind of odd. So I do want to bring that up now. Or I want to bring it up and discuss it. Now, besides that, there's also something else that happened this year that I thought would be a really good conversation piece, and it has to do with paranormal stuff. I was lucky enough to do an interview with a guy by the name of Michael or Paul, and he said some pretty interesting things that I thought was pretty cool that would be worth talking about. And I did interview him on both The Wonderful World of Weirdness. Well, I didn't interview him then. I was a part of the show with him and John Clark where we had conversations. But I also did an interview with him personally on my own personal channel, which is called Strange Stories. And he said something that really stuck out to me, and it had to do with coincidences. And I'll tell you right now, I do have video or shows that uh, concern the paranormal and the UFOs and stuff of that nature. But to be honest with you, they don't enthuse me as much as what they used to. You know, don't get me wrong. I talk about them all the time, and I do research with them, and I still get into it in that aspect, but they don't excite me like they used to back when I first started researching it. And the reason for that is because I actually freaking got inspired by them to learn about uh, to go deeper into them, and I started getting curious about other things that were a lot more in depth. You know what I mean? Different topics that seemed more interesting to me than what I'd previously been interested in. You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong. You know, I still like some of the stories about UFOs and abductions, but they just don't interest me as much as what other things do, like synchronicity. And that's something that I believe is a common denominator between a lot of people like Michael Paul, because like Michael Paul and me were having a conversation about something that had occurred in his life in the past, which involved the YMCA, and the death of a close friend of his, where he had gotten a room for his friend at the local YMCA, and his friend ended up being murdered in it. Now, he turned around and he said that the moment he went into that into that YMCA, that he had this weird feeling in the pit of his stomach. Okay, and he knew something was out of place, basically. Now, that stuck out to me, and I asked him about it in the interview, and I asked him about it a couple of times afterwards too, and it didn't seem to occur to him that it was really important, in my opinion. Now, fast forward a little while further, I started doing a show with Summer Todd on the Wonderful World of Weirdness. I did a show with her and her son Austin Todd, and the topic of the YMCA popped up again with Austin, and a lot of the things that got him curious in the paranormal and stuff like that is because of an incident that happened in the YMCA that was personal to him, and it didn't have anything to do with anybody's death or anything of that nature, but it kind of stuck out to me, you know. And whenever I was interviewing Michael discussed synchronicity, and that coincidences, in his opinion, weren't real, and that everything happens for a reason, you know. And then he went on to say your minds are created, or your minds are creating these events, okay. And he thought that he was going mad for months because he was seeing connections, things that were thought unconnected by everybody else, but he was like seeing connections. And in my mind, when I was hearing that, it seems to me that he was actually connecting the dots. You know what I mean? Like, whenever you go in and you do the jigsaw puzzles or the little puzzle books, you know, and they tell you to connect the dots, as a kid, you connect the dots, and to me, what I was hearing was he was actually connecting dots, just like that, and that's something that I really I really feel is true, because that's kind of what happened to me. I sobered up from drugs and alcohol in 2003, and when I did, all of a sudden, this whole new world of learning just opened up to me, and I wanted to learn about everything. And that is what I related to when he started discussing this stuff, because in how he described it, it seemed to have happened to him much faster. But with me, I was going through somewhat the same process, but I was also doing it at a slower pace, you know what I'm saying? Like, my mind was like a sponge, and all I wanted to do was learn more and more stuff. So, in that interview with Michael Paul, he went on to say that he had an experience that felt like a tsunami wave of information that flowed right into him, and it was like he felt sudden pains in his stomach, just like he said that he felt a bad feeling in his stomach when he went into the YMCA, and that stuck out to me. And he said it was feeling as though he was going to have a seizure, you know what I mean? And then he said visions of a jigsaw puzzle of information was coming together in his mind's eye, and it was coming together fast. So this is what he was seeing in front of him, and it didn't happen like that to me. What happened to me is I started going through information and finding different information, and this took years and years of doing it, but I never wanted to stop, you know what I mean? I think it was just a matter of speed and stuff like that when it comes to it that really stuck out to me. Now with the whole thing about seeing spirits and stuff, or with Austin Todd and his mom, Summer, she was telling me a story about her mom, who had seen spirits dressed in Victorian clothing at a local college, or was it Oxford University, back when she was working there in the cafeteria. And then she started saying stuff about her sisters, and she could sense some strange things about her and her husband's bedroom and things of that nature, I started picking up on that stuff, and I asked her about that, and we started diving into it. And then she also mentioned, like, Austin had mentioned the archangel Michael, and he was never raised around religion. He never had enough a religious upbringing, but he knew about it. So these were some of the stuff that stuck out in my head whenever it comes to all that stuff. Like, and I don't know, it started. These are the kind of things that I get interested in when I hear stories like that. So that's what I'm saying when it comes to UFOs and ghosts and stuff of that nature. Like, it still interests me, but not as much as what it did when I first started. She started also talking about the sense that someone was watching her, and that something wasn't right. And then she also had thoughts of people that were going to die, like premonitions that they were going to die, and she started seeing their aura. So I thought a lot of that was interesting. She felt weird about people. Like she had this one guy that used to freak her out, and she felt weird about him, and he ended up committing a triple homicide in her freaking hometown. Now, the man was Depew, I guess is what his name was, and he also worked at this Miami University, which was built basically on top of Oxford University after it was closed, and Miami University in Ohio took over. That was basically just the first part of the interview that we had together, so it really got pretty interesting. I thought that was some pretty cool stuff. So we ended up doing a lot more stuff concerning that, and it just really got interesting, basically. She also experienced an angel experience, is what I've usually been calling it, where she experienced it during a really bad accident that she happened, and she kind of says that it's an out-of-body experience, but she says it isn't. So that's something that really stuck out to me when I heard it. And she also said that she heard a female presence that was there, and it was within a split second of time, So I really thought that was interesting. And, she went on to talk a little bit more and told me that she had saw a spirit of a man wearing a top hat, and she was wondering if she was experiencing a poltergeist activities. That made me think of Watchers, and then it also she mentioned that she felt evil. She felt some evil presences and stuff, and sightings. Just strange things of that nature, which kind of goes into a little bit about what I was talking about with Michael Paul, because a lot of this was connected with his experience. It was connected with the death of his friend, so he ended up having those visions, and then he started going to Rome and visiting monasteries, and he said that he started seeing geometric symbols that would jump out at him, and Summer said that something within herself had opened up. She mentioned people and events began to occur around her concerning whatever she mentioned, so if she brought something up, all of a sudden things would start happening around her. I thought that was pretty interesting. She also said that the number 1111 was important to her, and it had to do with her husband passing away, so I know that has to do with spirituality and like angels, I believe, guardian angel. She was really into like synchronicity and stuff too, so that was some stuff that really stuck out to me, and that was something else. We actually went through and did an entire episode on just 1111, and found out that it's the number of masters, the ascended masters and stuff of that nature. It's the ascended masters are supposed to be like sending messages to you yourself, it's a divine aspect of the universe and the master of being yourself and stuff like that. So give me a second, I'll be right back. So yeah, I'm back. I I had to go and turn down a TV. Somebody had it up extremely loud. So, but yeah, that's kind of the thing that really stuck out to me, and the whole reason why I brought it all up was it comes back to what I was talking about with synchronicity and coincidences, and Mike saying that there's no such thing as coincidences, and that we create it all in our own mind, And besides talking about like the ascended masters and stuff, it's even a part of a lot of what a lot of people in numerology believe in too. There's a whole bunch of belief systems that go according to it, and it seems just odd to me that people still talk about the 1111, and I'm not one of those people that kind of like, well, first of all, let me tell you, like, everything's trendy. You go on television and you watch trendy television. You go on the internet and you see trend. Everything's about trendiness, and I don't fall for that stuff. I don't try to talk about the trendy stuff. If you want to hear all of the stuff that people are talking about when it comes to UFOs and ghosts and the same old, but from a different person, then you're coming to the wrong person. I'm not that kind of a guy, you know what I mean? A lot of the topics that I come up with rarely have anything to do with ghosts or spirits or anything of that nature. It's really stuff that interests me, because even in like those crowds and that following, you'll see that they fall into a trendy kind of sect, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden they start talking about, the Sumerians, which I'm into. I am into ancient history and stuff, but what they do is they'll start talking about the Sumerians, then they'll start talking about the Assyrians, then they'll go straight from the Assyrians to the Egyptians, and then all of a sudden they're trying to connect the Egyptians with South America, and when they run out of material for all of that, then the next thing you know, they're talking about the Orients again, and Southeast Asia, and the Hinduism and Buddhism, and that's pretty much where they stay. So with me, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to try to tell you that that ancient history is connected to Atlantis, and that you can find the connections in South America and Egypt and stuff, because first of all, it's just trendy. I'm not even going to say first of all, it's just trendy. Everybody is talking that nonsense, and then maybe if you're lucky, they'll talk about what is it, good backload tapping, no, and stuff like that. With most of my research into ancient history, I've been more fascinated with the Urartu and the Persian cultures and stuff of that nature, and the Indo-European migration patterns, things like that, and how Buddhism came about, and Hinduism, and things like that. That's where I'm at right now. So it comes back to a lot of this when it comes to those kind of things. Now with synchronicity, I really believe that what Mark was saying is true. He said that we create these events in our own head, and I believe that too about words. Like when you start speaking the words, I mean, words can manifest themselves, and that's not anything supernatural or paranormal. That's just the way it is. You can say something that can destroy somebody, just because they heard you say it. So I believe in that. That's just common sense when it comes to your minds are creating events that actually manifest themselves in the real world. I believe that. I also think that way when it comes to words. You can do that with words as well. So when it comes to coincidences versus synchronicity, I also think that it goes even deeper than just that. You have to think about free will, and you also have to think about do you believe that everything is predetermined, or do you believe that there's like a middle of the road kind of thing when it comes to that kind of stuff? Like, there are some things that is predetermined, and there are some things that has to do with free will and the power to create your own future, or is it all predetermined for you? So we've had pretty good conversations. I actually had a guy by the name of Vince, and on one of my shows, and he came in and did a pretty good interview with me, him and his buddy and Bob Dub, and they talked about it. I thought it was a pretty good topic, and we actually did an episode of Into the Abyss on that topic, and it turned out pretty good. Now with that being said, it comes down to a lot of the stuff that's been going on today. Like I said, I think that we do create things in our own mind, and I think that we do it with our own words. And you stop and you take a look at the things that are going on in today's world, especially in politics and stuff of that nature. You listen to what's been going on, and you do research, and you find out things about history. You can literally connect the dots, and you can call that synchronicity. You can call it whatever you want, but I don't think it's coincidence whatsoever. I also believe that we do create these things. From the moment people first thought of flying machines, that was the beginning. That was where the idea of an airplane was invented, was when a person said, hey man, what if we did this to fly? It just grew and grew until eventually we could fly with airplanes. I believe the same thing happens with all the technology we have, you know what I mean? You take a look at these skyscrapers and how huge they are, and in the beginning, people were talking about freaking the Tower of Babel, and then the Great Pyramids of Egypt, which was just so astonishing to people for the longest time, until, of course, we built the Eiffel Tower, and then the Empire State Building, and then the World Trade Center, and it just kept on going. We created that, and it was our minds and our words manifesting into something, you know what I mean, into the material world. So that is what I think is happening today in today's world. And earlier I was talking about like Microsoft and Ubisoft and cloud gaming and all of that stuff, and trying to convince UK's regulators to approve Xbox company's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. This was all over the streaming rights for Call of Duty. You know what I mean? It had turned into such a huge money maker that it actually went in front of the EU and the UK. Now the EU freaking the weird part about all that is the whole negotiations, it was hinged on their agreement that they would put these games on this cloud. And that's why I wonder when I hear stuff like this, what's so important about this cloud that they feel is important enough to where this $1 billion deal, or actually $68.7 billion acquisition, is determined on if they put their games on a cloud system for gaming. I think that this is all something that that really needs to be looked at, and it needs to be discussed, because a lot of people don't realize we create things, we manifest things through our mind and through freaking the things that we say and what we do. And what is this cloud streaming going to be in the future? And the thing that gets me is with IGN. Okay, now that's the thing. Now Spencer, the guy who is in charge of these games, they're planning on shutting down all of the old games from Xbox 360 on July the 29th. And after that, you're not gonna have access to those games anymore. And that's why I've been telling everybody, if you still have the console and you want to play these games, you need to go out and get them. And I believe that's in 20 days. The whole setup is gone, so just remember that. And these emulators, I've played them, and I'll tell you what, there aren't too many of them that are really all that great. So you might want to think about that before you just say, well, I'll just use an emulator. If you've used emulators, you know what I'm talking about. But I find it odd that these guys are going to be closing down these old stores on the internet, and just the games, period, and they're just getting rid of them. There's so many of those games that are going to be lost, but then they want to start a cloud, a gaming cloud, and have all their games on there. So those are some of the stuff that sticks out to me. Later on, maybe I can get into it again. I went through this a while back, but I really don't find it a very good thing to be doing. I just don't trust it whatsoever, especially when it comes to the EU and regulating things. I get into a lot of political history, and I start figuring things out, like with all this stuff that everybody's talking about when it comes to like woke, and when it comes to, you know, civil rights activists and people freaking arguing over transgender stuff. I actually learned more about that by actually going in and doing the research, and I've found a lot of things that's been kind of disturbing, and it doesn't have to do with what's going on today. It has to do with how long this stuff has been going on. The truth of the matter is a lot of this was happening a long time ago, even before the United States became the United States. This is a lot of the stuff that we're going through today is called radicalism, and there was an actual group called radicals that goes all the way back to, like I said, the time when the United States became a country, and all the way up into the French Revolution in the 1900s and up until today. And what they were is they believed in like classic liberalism. They believed in a lot of the stuff that constitutional governments believed in. They believed in a lot of the stuff that John Locke taught about, you know, freedom of speech. They also believed in they also believed in a freaking an open market, free market, you know, free trade, stuff like that. They believed in a lot of the things that that classic liberalism taught, which is actually what created the Constitution that we have here in the United States. But besides that, they like classic liberalism is believed in small government, whereas the radicals didn't believe in small government, and they felt that a lot of the stuff that's mentioned with classic liberalism needed to be regulated, and it needed to have it needed to have reform and stuff of that nature, whereas classic liberalism didn't believe in that. They believed in small government and things of that nature, and that actually was around way back in the day. But the problem was is we overlooked it, and nobody really kept an eye on that, you know, and made sure that it didn't get out of hand, and it grew into what it is today because it just had plenty of open space to freaking grow, you know, to flounder or to grow, basically, you know. And that really opened my eyes up, because I was having issues with a lot of things historically about all this stuff, and it goes back again to what Mike was saying, you know, there's no such thing as coincidence, you know, and it's just a matter of allowing things to freaking grow, and that's why we have a lot of these issues. We've come a long way in a lot of different areas, and I think that is actually something that is important to bring up and to talk about, you know. So for me personally, I don't trust any of these regulations and stuff that people freaking want to impose on me. My beliefs go more, I'm not going to say conservative, because I've been saying that, and here previously, or in the most recent times, I've been learning a little bit more about conservative and what it really means, and I think that's something that people need to really look at. When you call yourself a conservative, you need to really kind of think about that and find out what conservatism really is, because it really shocked me. I do have some conservative ideas, but I'm not going to say that I'm a conservative anymore. Now, I can say that I'm anti-federalist. I don't believe in centralized government. I don't think that that is something that I approve of, not after some of the stuff I've read and what I've seen and things that are involved there. But other than that, I also know the difference now between today's version of liberal and what classic liberalism it was, and how that actually is what brought about the Constitution for the United States. And see, that's the thing about here in the United States. We think that conservative ideas was what created this country, and it wasn't. It was these liberal ideas that freaking were introduced by founding fathers, and they got their ideas. They were inspired mostly by a guy who was named John Locke in England. And John Locke wrote about all this stuff like private property and things of that nature, and what sovereignty is and things like that. And that is what classical liberalism is. But as time went by, I personally believe that the radicals overtook liberalism, or they basically did that, and that's what we call liberals today, is really radicals. They kind of took over when it comes to being a liberal, and at least that's my take on it, and that's the way it seems to me. So I don't know, it's really an interesting thing. If you guys want to find out more about that, go and check out John Locke. He's a very interesting guy. So he goes all the way back to before the Constitution and the Revolution here in the United States. So I'd say check that out. And I also think that kind of going over conservatism and seeing what that really is something that's important to think about too. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world, and if you don't keep yourself up on it and you don't understand what's being said, then and actually what happened historically, it's just not going to go well. It's not going to be pretty at all. So have yourself educated to the stuff that's taking place in the world today, as well as what happened in the past, and I think you'll be okay, just like we'll all be okay. And things are pretty crazy, but it's like I told Mark and Bob Dub, because they're from England and they're from England and New Zealand. What they're seeing today is new to them, because they haven't had the privilege of seeing the United States for very long, really, because like the English didn't have the ability to see what was going on in the media when it comes to the United States up until about like the 1990s. And before that, the BBC had a tight hold over everything, so their media was strictly regulated. Like even to this day, we can watch BBC in America, but we can't watch BBC directly from England, and that's because they withhold their media from the rest of the world. If that's why back in the 70s they had 3 different versions of Three's Company on television, is because they had to have Three's Company, the original one, in England, and then they wanted to bring it to the United States, so they made Three's Company here in the United States, and I believe they did the 3rd one in Australia. So you had 3 different shows of the same show playing in 3 different countries, you see. And that was the kind of things that was going on back then. So just because it seems weird and it seems pretty outrageous to these other countries, that doesn't mean that this stuff wasn't happening here in the United States for a very long time. It's just you haven't seen it as much as what you think you have. Like this stuff it's been crazy in the United States since freaking George Washington became president. And I'll put it to you this way, put it to you that way. So it's kind of like keep that in mind. I'm doing my best really to be able to come up with enough information to keep this going for an hour. I wanted to go over this stuff and maybe bring it up because these are some pretty good topics. And don't forget what I said either about Microsoft and Xbox 360. That's going to be on July the 29th. They're closing their doors, and you'll no longer be able to buy any games from Xbox 360. And just so you know, I have tried the emulator for Xbox, or the emulators, all of them for Xbox 360, and they suck. Okay, they're not really all that great. So keep that in mind. If you have the money to get these games that you want, and you have the console, or you don't have the console, get them. Go out or order them and get them shipped to you, whatever. But after July the 29th, they'll no longer be available. So just something that you need to remember. And Phil Spencer, he's